You've seen it at every truck stop. A Peterbilt 379 from 1996 is parked next to a brand new Cascadia. The old truck has 1.4 million miles on the odometer. The owner just paid more for it than the same truck cost new in 1996. That isn't more. That's absurd. So why is a truck older than most truckers' kids worth more than the engineering marvel sitting next to it? The obvious answer is the part everyone gets wrong. Old trucks aren't supposed to be the premium product. They are supposed to be the bargain bin. Instead, clean Cummins N14 engines are commanding premiums. Cat 3 406E engines with million-mile histories disappear the day they are listed. Whole companies exist to assemble brand new trucks using rebuilt engines from the 1980s. There is a federal court case attached to this. 16 state attorneys general are involved. There is an EPA analysis estimating 1,700 premature deaths. And the answer is sitting in your pantry right now. Most people will never see the connection. This is a $30,000 per truck question, and there is a 2027 deadline. A lot of small fleets will not survive. The answer has 4 layers, and almost no one outside the industry has heard more than the first. But let's start with what every owner-operator already knows. Modern trucks have a part most drivers cannot even see. It is called a one-box. When it fails, it can derate the entire engine to 5 miles per hour until a dealer plugs in a laptop. That is not a metaphor. That is the literal fault code, SPN 5246. A perfectly running rig becomes a parking lot statue in the breakdown lane because a sensor the size of a thumbnail did not like its readings. Every post 2010 emissions system is the same chain: a diesel particulate filter for soot, a selective catalytic reduction unit injecting urea into the exhaust, an EGR valve, a diesel oxidation catalyst, a web of NOx sensors, temperature sensors, pressure sensors, and software watching all of it. Each component sounds reasonable in isolation, but layered together, they create a chain where any single broken link stops the truck. And the math gets worse. A failed NOx sensor costs roughly $3,000. A clogged DPF that needs forced regeneration costs $260 and 4 hours off the road. A complete one-box replacement on a Class 8 truck costs $5,000 to $10,000. Roadside service, if the truck derates, costs $800 to $1,500. A tow costs $500 to $2,500. Lost revenue while it sits is $1,000 to $2,000 per day. Here is what nobody mentions. These are not rare events. Overdrive's 2021 truck purchase and lease survey found 46% of used truck buyers had to rebuild engines or fix emissions components. Almost half the used market was repairing the systems sold as the future. For a 300 truck fleet, that is a budget line. For an owner-operator with one truck, it is a wipeout. One $10,000 surprise can erase a quarter of the year's profit. But engine reliability is only the second biggest reason older trucks command premiums. The bigger reason is not what these old engines have, it is what they do not have. Picture a Cummins N14 from 1998. There is no computer telling it when to inject fuel, no sensor monitoring exhaust gas recirculation, no software waiting to throw a code that strands the truck in Wyoming. The fuel pump is mechanical. The injectors are mechanical. The block was cast to be rebuilt 3 or 4 times. If something breaks, the driver can diagnose it by ear and fix it himself with hand tools he keeps in the side box. That's the philosophy. The Cummins N14, the Cat 3406E, the early single-turbo C15, and the Detroit Series 60 12.7L were engineered with the assumption that a driver might be 1,000 miles from the nearest dealership when something failed. Therefore, the engine had to be repairable in a parking lot. The numbers from the field are why small fleets pay premiums. Owner reports document Cummins N14 engines hitting 780,000 miles before their first in-frame rebuild. Detroit Series 60 engines exceeding 1 million miles are still running on the original block. CAT 3406E engines were overhauled at 1,068,000 miles. These were not outliers. They were the design target. Here is the contrast. When a 2014 DD15 throws a D-rate code, the truck needs proprietary diagnostic software to recover. Whenever major work is done on the after-treatment system, every component has to be reset by a technician with a dealer-level laptop. The driver is locked out of his own truck. By 2008, Detroit had built 1 million Series 60 engines, the most produced heavy-duty engine in American trucking history. Therefore, when a small fleet asks for a Series 60 12.7 liter, they are not asking for a museum piece. They are asking for the gold standard built before the exhaust gas recirculation heat problems of 2003, the diesel particulate filter requirements of 2007, and the selective catalytic reduction requirements of 2010. And this engine philosophy, repairable, mechanical, owner-controlled, is hiding inside a system that delivered every box of cereal in your pantry. We will get to that. When a 2024 Cascadia derates in Wyoming at 11 p.m., the driver waits for a dealer that is closed until 7 a.m. and a software update he cannot download. When a 1996 Peterbilt with an N14 has a fuel issue at 11 p.m., the driver opens the hood with a 9/16-inch wrench and is moving again before sunrise. That difference, multiplied across a career, is worth the price gap between the trucks. But here's where this story turns from a maintenance problem into a federal court case. What if you could buy a brand new 2018 Peterbilt? New body, new sleeper, new aerodynamics, new everything, except the engine, transmission, and rear axle, which were rebuilt from a wrecked 1999 truck. They are called glider kits, and for almost a decade, they were the closest thing trucking had to a legal time machine. The Clean Air Act allows reuse of expensive truck powertrains after a body is destroyed in a wreck. The original purpose was salvage, but Fitzgerald glider kits in Crossville, Tennessee saw the same loophole differently. By 2017, Fitzgerald was assembling more than 3,000 gliders a year. At peak, they were capable of 5,000. The math worked because gliders sold for roughly 25% less than equivalent new trucks. The buyer got a modern cab and the engine he actually wanted. Per EPA's own analysis, those gliders emitted approximately 55 times more soot than a conventional new truck. Most used pre-2002 engines emit 20 to 40 times more NOx than 2017 standards allowed. Therefore, EPA finalized a rule in October 2016, capping each manufacturer at 300 gliders per year starting January 2018. For Fitzgerald, that was a 90% cut overnight. 5 rounds of layoffs followed, but here's where this turned into a federal court fight. In November 2017, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, after a documented meeting with Fitzgerald's CEO, proposed repealing the cap. He cited a Tennessee Tech University study showing gliders polluted no more than modern trucks. The study was funded by Fitzgerald and conducted at a Fitzgerald facility. By late 2018, Tennessee Tech publicly retracted it, and the math kept getting worse. On July 6, 2018, amid an ethics scandal, Pruitt announced EPA simply would not enforce the cap for 2018 and 2019. The Environmental Defense Fund estimated that one decision would cause more than 1,700 premature deaths over the life of those additional vehicles. 12 days later, the D.C. Circuit Court issued an emergency stay. 8 days after that, EPA withdrew the non-enforcement. Therefore, the glider window narrowed but never closed. Fitzgerald still produces gliders under the cap. Every one of those trucks represents the same answer to the same question that drove the lawsuit. Small operators want the old engine, and they want it badly enough to fund a federal court case to get it. But the next deadline is not a court ruling. It is a calendar date. January 1st, 2027. The EPA's Phase 3 standards take effect. NOx limits drop another 80%, and particulate matter limits drop another 50%. Industry analysts project new truck prices will jump $30,000 or more per unit when the rule lands. The price spike already started. Section 232 tariffs that took effect in November 2025 added a documented $9,500 line item on one owner-operator's quote. A truck specified identically to a $155,000 purchase in 2023 was quoted at $190,000 by late 2025. That is before the 2027 jump. Therefore, the pre-buy panic is on. Used pre-emissions trucks are not depreciating anymore. They are appreciating. CARB compliant. 2010 or newer engines are running $10,000 to $20,000 higher in California than identical units elsewhere, because anything older has been illegal to operate in the state since January 2023. And here's the part nobody outside the industry has connected. We are about to see exactly how all of this lands in your daily life, because trucking economics do not stay inside trucking. Every new truck price increase flows downstream. The owner-operator's per-mile cost climbs. The freight rate climbs. The shipper pays more. The retailer pays more. You pay more for groceries, for the Amazon order that showed up yesterday, for the prescription you picked up last week. The operator who bought $32,000 1999 Peterbilt with a rebuilt N14 instead of a $190,000 new tractor is not just saving on his truck payment. He is keeping freight rates from climbing another nickel a mile across his entire customer base. And his customer base is your supermarket. Multiply that by roughly 350,000 owner-operators and 2 million Class 8 trucks on American roads. Suddenly the question of what kind of engine a small fleet runs stops being a hobbyist question. It becomes the math behind every price tag in every store you walk into. So here's where you actually land. Why are truckers going back to the 1980s trucks? Because that 1990s Peterbilt parked next to the new Cascadia is a $30,000 emissions cliff avoided, a million-mile engine repaired on the shoulder instead of at a $1,500 a day dealership, a Clean Air Act loophole that became a federal court case, a Tennessee company that built 3,000 trucks a year on a regulatory technicality, an EPA administrator's resignation, an analysis estimating 1,700 premature deaths, a 2027 deadline, a tariff line item, and a downstream cost in every package you have received this month. You looked at that old truck and thought you were looking at a guy who could not afford a new one. What you were actually looking at was a small business owner who calculated correctly that a rebuilt 1998 Cummins beats a 2024 emissions Cascade on every metric that matters: cost, downtime, repairability, and survival. That black painted hood, that rumble of mechanical injection, that is the sound of the system that kept your grocery bill from being 5 cents higher this morning. And if you think trucking is full of hidden math, wait until we get into why the cheapest food in your supermarket travels the furthest, and the most expensive food often travels the shortest distance.